We live in interesting times.
On tonight's headlines.
The ambassador of Israel, His Excellency Rafael Harpaz, visited the Iglesia Ni Cristo Central Office on Wednesday morning for a courtesy call to Executive Minister Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. He also had a quick tour of the INC Museum as well as of the INC Central Temple in Quezon City.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo holds talks with the Turkish leadership in Ankara over the disappearance of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi as Riyadh faces new claims he was tortured and killed inside its Istanbul consulate.
EU summit host Donald Tusk said he will ask British Prime Minister Theresa May for concrete and creative proposals to break the Brexit impasse as she tried to rally her divided cabinet.
Despite an exceptionally snow-filled winter, Swiss glaciers have lost 2.5% of their volume this year, a report which dubs 2018 a year of extremes says.
I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo held talks with the Turkish leadership in Ankara over the disappearance of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi as Riyadh faced new claims he was killed inside its Istanbul consulate. Pro-government Turkish media published gruesome new allegations that Khashoggi was killed by being gradually dismembered by a Saudi assassination squad, some of whom, the New York Times said, were tied to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. But the United States has refused to rebuke its ally despite the mounting claims, with President Trump insisting on the principle of innocence before being proven guilty, and Pompeo saying after talks in Riyadh, "I don't want to talk about any of the facts." Now, despite the lurid allegations published in media loyal to him, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has also taken a circumspect line in the case, saying his priority is to uncover the truth through an investigation. The controversy has blown a massive hole in attempts by Prince Mohammed to promote himself as a modern reformer and led to a spate of cancellations from a major Riyadh investment conference scheduled next week. Turkish sources allege that Khashoggi was lured into the consulate and then murdered and then dismembered. Saudi officials say he left the building but have provided no evidence to support this.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says Saudi authorities have made a commitment to thoroughly investigate Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi's disappearance in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul.
Those meetings, I stress the importance of them conducting a complete investigation of this disappearance of Jamal Khashoggi. And they made a commitment. They said they would do that. They said it would be a thorough, complete, and transparent investigation. We'll all see the results of that. They made a commitment that they would show the entire world. They also indicated they would get this done quickly. I don't know the precise timeline, but they indicated that they understood the importance of getting that done in a timely, rapid fashion so that they could begin.
President Donald Trump dispatched Pompeo on an urgent mission to Riyadh to defuse the crisis over Khashoggi, an insider turned critic of the conservative monarchy who was last seen on October 2 when he entered the Saudi consulate in Istanbul to sort out marriage paperwork. Officials in Turkey say Khashoggi, a U.S. resident, was killed inside the consulate. Mr. Khashoggi was last seen entering Saudi Arabia's consulate in Istanbul seeking marriage documents. Speaking anonymously, Turkish officials say They have evidence he was killed within 2 hours of entering the consulate by a team of Saudi agents.
Meanwhile, British businessman Sir Richard Branson, head of the Virgin Empire, unveiled his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for his contribution to the music industry, and that's the opportunity to reaffirm his commitment to suspend all business with Saudi Arabia until there's a satisfactory explanation of what happened to journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
Well, if it's true that Saudi killed and cut up a journalist in Turkey, then I don't think any business can do business with a country that behaves in that way. So we have suspended all our dealings with Saudi Arabia until and unless we have a very satisfactory explanation. It's pretty horrific what we've all heard, and nothing yet has changed our mind on it.
Corporate bigwigs are pulling out of an investment conference in Saudi Arabia next week, concerned by the fate of missing journalist Jamal Khashoggi, despite the risk of losing business with the kingdom. Now others are staying mum over their intentions, while foreign politicians such as U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and IMF Chief Christine Lagarde say for now, they're still going to the October 23 to the 25th Future Investment Initiative in Riyadh.
Israeli warplanes pounded the Gaza Strip after the first rocket fire from the Palestinian territory in weeks hit an Israeli city in a blow to efforts to avert a new war. Gaza's Islamist rulers, Hamas, disavowed the rocket fire, saying they rejected all irresponsible attempts to undermine Egyptian efforts to broker a new long-term truce. But Israel, which holds Hamas responsible for all the rocket fire from the territory, regardless of who launches it, struck 20 targets in Gaza, killing 1 Palestinian, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. Israel also closed both its border crossings with Gaza in reprisal, further isolating the blockaded enclave where deteriorating living conditions have stoked violent protesters along the border. Gaza militants fired 2 rockets before dawn, one of which caused damage to the garden of a family home in the southern city of Beersheba, 40 kilometers away.
President Trump warned Honduras he will cut millions of dollars in aid if a group of about 2,000 migrants is allowed to reach the United States. Take a look. A migrant caravan set out on Saturday from the impoverished, violence-plagued country and was headed north on the long journey through Guatemala and Mexico to the U.S. border. President Trump, who has made cracking down on illegal immigration a keystone of his presidency, tweeted that U.S. aid to Honduras, which is planned to reach nearly $66 million in 2019, would end. Trump, who has made cracking down The United States has strongly informed the President of Honduras that if the large caravan of people heading to the U.S. is not stopped and brought back to Honduras, no more money or aid will be given to Honduras, effective immediately, he said. Guatemala announced it would stop the group from entering if they did not have the proper visas. However, the migrants, including children, managed to reach a shelter in the southwestern Guatemalan city of Esquipulas on Monday, according to local media reports. Rights organizations called on the Guatemalan government to guarantee the migrants safe passage.
Nuestro presidente no ha puesto una fuente de trabajo. No hay fuente de trabajo en nuestro país, en Honduras. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que tenemos que hacer nosotros? Emigrar, buscar un futuro para mejor.
Honduras is a country of 9 million people, but around 1 million Hondurans live in the United States, most illegally.
Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May faces a Brexit showdown with frustrated EU leaders, with talks to agree an orderly breakup at an impasse. This week's summit in Brussels was billed as a moment of truth for negotiations on Britain's exit from the bloc, but it seems so far the truth is that the two sides just cannot agree.
Unfortunately, the report on the state of the negotiations that I got from Michel Barnier today, as well as yesterday's debate in the House of Commons, give me no grounds for optimism before tomorrow's European Council on Brexit. And as I see it, the only source of hope for a deal for now is the goodwill and determination on both sides. However, for a breakthrough to take place, besides goodwill, we need new facts. Tomorrow, I am going to ask Prime Minister May whether she has concrete proposals on how to break the impasse. Only such proposals can determine if a breakthrough is possible. While working on a Brexit deal, we also need to make sure that we are prepared in case an agreement is not possible, or in case it is rejected. Therefore, tomorrow, leaders will discuss how to step up our preparations for a no-deal scenario.
The main disagreement between London and Brussels is over how to keep the Irish border open after Brexit, but May is also fighting with her own MPs, who must ultimately approve the final divorce deal. At a 3-hour cabinet meeting on Tuesday morning, which included ministers with reservations about her strategy, May had said a deal was achievable while sticking to her principles on the Irish border issue.
We cannot let this disagreement derail the prospects of a good deal and leave us with the no-deal outcome that no one wants. I continue to believe that a negotiated deal is the best outcome for the UK and for the European Union. I continue to believe that such a deal is achievable, and that is the spirit in which I will continue to work with our European partners, and I commend this statement to the House.
The sticking point is how to keep open the land border between Northern Ireland and EU member Ireland after Britain leaves the bloc's single market and customs union. May said the EU had agreed to explore her proposal to keep Britain aligned with the bloc's customs rules until a wider trade deal could be agreed that resolved the need for frontier checks. But Brussels had said there was not time to work out the details, she said, and proposed its own fallback plan, the backstop, that would see only Northern Ireland aligned with EU rules.
I would not expect this House to agree to a deal unless we have the reassurance that the UK as a sovereign nation has this say over our arrangements with the EU. Mr. Speaker, I do not believe the UK and the EU are far apart. We both agree that Article 50 cannot provide the legal basis for a permanent relationship, and we both agree this backstop must be temporary. So we must now...
Speaking ahead of a meeting with British Prime Minister Theresa May at Downing Street, Sinn Féin leader Mary Lou MacDonald says any so-called backstop deal for the island of Ireland has to be enduring, as supporters of Brexit call for a time-limited arrangement.
Clear that Brexit itself is not a transitory event. The consequences of it will be long and will be deep. And so the backstop arrangement, the answers to the questions for Ireland have to be enduring. If there is a hard Brexit, well then there will be an immediate demand for a referendum on Irish unity. It would not be in any way acceptable that all of the damage of a hard Brexit be visited on the island of Ireland, and for the British government to accept Ireland, north and south, to simply take that on the chin and be filled. I think it's imperative that the Irish government holds its nerve, I think it's imperative that our European partners do as Michel Barnier promised and don't blink. That Brexit itself is not
And as repeatedly said, still unresolved in the Brexit deal is the issue of the Northern Ireland backstop, which Donald Tusk compared to the Gordian knot unraveled by Alexander the Great. He said he wished for a leader of the likes of the Macedonian king, fabled to have solved the riddle of the Gordian knot by slicing through it with one stroke of his sword. Take a listen.
Clear, I mean, the problem is clear. It's still the Irish question and the problem of the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland and so-called backstop. It looks like a new version of the Gordian knot. Unfortunately, I can't see a new version of Alexander the Great. As you know, it's not so easy to find this kind of creative leader.
The Gordian knot was a labyrinth tangle remarkable for its complexity and for the fact that it left no loose ends visible, which Alexander simply sliced through with his sword, an option that is not available where the backstop is concerned now. Customs control on the 500-kilometer British-Irish border were abolished in 1993, helping cross-border trade movement and friendships to flourish. Today, little marks the border except the change in color of the road markings. For owner Eamon Fitzpatrick, the lack of border controls is key.
There's times I could cross the border maybe 20-25 times a day, depending on what roads and that I'm going.
Locals are frustrated with London and Dublin politicians who they feel have little understanding of their lives.
They don't really know what the border is. I mean, they just think it's a road and there's a crossing. Like it's a whole different scenario when you're on the ground.
After decades of sectarian conflict, many fear that when the UK leaves the EU, the return of a hard border will undermine a hard-won peace. Now, those who are old enough to recall the troubles when armed groups fought the British to try to unite North and South, and the border was militarized. Local Sinn Féin councillor Pat Trinner lost a finger at the height of the tensions, and he thinks if Brexit brings back border checks, his party could get a new wave of support for its aim of reuniting Ireland.
The debate around Brexit is bringing a focus back onto that illogical and unnatural line that they put through our country. Sinn Féin do want to see, and have been working for and are working for, Irish unity and independence. The focus on partition helps that debate.
Pakistani authorities executed a man convicted of raping and murdering a 6-year-old girl in an incident that shocked the country and sparked riots earlier this year. Chilling CCTV footage broadcast on television following the killing purportedly showed the young girl Zainab Fatima Amin walking hand in hand with an unidentified man in what may have been her last moments. Irman Ali, 24, was handed 4 separate death sentences for the rape and murder which took place in the eastern city of Kasur in January. In all, he confessed to 8 attacks on children in the city, including 5 murders in a spate of violence that terrorized society. Members of Zainab's family had called for Ali to be executed in public, a move rejected by the Lahore High Court on Tuesday. At least 12 cases of rape and murder have been recorded in the Kasur area in the past 2 years. Ali confessed to 8 of these, but 4 remained unsolved. Prior to the recent flood of cases, Kasur was already infamous for sexual abuse after authorities uncovered a huge pedophile ring in the city in 2015.
The United Nations Children's Fund said that 2.2 million Yemeni children are suffering from acute malnutrition and need immediate care. As the fourth year of conflict in Yemen approaches, the humanitarian situation in the country continues to deteriorate day after day, according to the organization in a statement posted on its website. The statement warned that the increase in cholera cases in the past few weeks makes the possibility of a third wave of the pandemic possible, in addition to the spread of food insecurity in the country. For nearly 4 years, Yemen has been battling a war between government forces and Houthi militants who have been taking control of several provinces, including the capital Sana'a, since 2014. An Arab military alliance led by Saudi Arabia has been supporting Yemeni government forces against the Houthis.
French prosecutors have launched an investigation after scuffles broke out during police searches of the headquarters of far-left party La France Insoumise, or LFI, and the home of party leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon. The searches come after prosecutors opened an inquiry into alleged campaign financing violations and fake jobs for EU Parliament assistants. During an impromptu rally outside the party office, Mélenchon denounced an attempt to intimidate him, saying his accounts had already been validated by the public oversight body. The first inquiry involves claims that Mélenchon's party misused funds provided by the EU to pay for assistance at the European Parliament by redirecting them to domestic activities in France. The second stems from the head of France's campaign oversight body, who signaled possible irregularities in the accounts for Mélenchon's 2017 bid for the French presidency. Mélenchon denied the claims of illicitly paying assistants, saying they were raised in jest by a far-right lawmaker who was criticizing a similar inquiry being carried out against National Rally leader Marine Le Pen.
Prenez des photos, prenez des photos. Vous vous calmez, monsieur. C'est un violent. Vous l'avez écrasé. Monsieur, ça fait 2 fois que je vous le dis. Non, mais je le dis signaler. Eh, je suis député, moi, monsieur.
Staying in France, in Mayotte, clashes between Mahorans protesting against illegal immigration and Comorian patients took place in front of a consultation center in Mamoudzou as demonstrators tried to block the entrance to the service. Situated between Madagascar and Mozambique, the Mayotte archipelago is prosperous relative to neighboring Comoros, an impoverished and unstable island nation, which is one of the poorest countries in the world. Mayotte was part of the Comoros until they split after a referendum on independence from France in 1974. Mayotte, comprising 2 islands, Petit Terre and Grande Terre, voted strongly to remain part of France, while the rest of the Comoros opted for self-rule. Defying Comoros' continuing claims over Mayotte, the territory today has the administrative status of a French department, roughly equivalent to a county. Now, this entitles it to support for infrastructure, medical care, and education, just as in mainland France. Its citizens living in the farthest region of the European Union have unfettered rights to travel, work, and live in the EU. But one outcome has been a growing migrant crisis.
In the island of Gibraltar, a tiny British territory connected to Spain, cross-border workers are concerned by a possibility of a no-deal Brexit, as the ability to cross the seas is essential to their livelihood. Here's more.
I'm quietly confident that the Spanish government and the British government will be able to work out that there's 15,000 people that cross the border every day, and it would be silly to close that off to this whole community of people that live here. You know, it's a very close-knit community in Gibraltar, and I feel that Spain and the UK would be silly to affect that in any way, whether it's a no-deal Brexit or not.
The majority of people I've spoken to, certainly in my circle of friends here, do not have much confidence in Theresa May and her negotiation skills. I would say bring somebody in like Jacob Rees-Mogg to lead the negotiations. She isn't strong enough in terms of negotiating a good deal for leaving the EU.
A heart-melting hug from a 5-year-old Australian schoolboy greeted Harry and his expectant wife Meghan in the outback Australian town of Dubbo before the royal couple sat down with farmers in one of the country's hardest-hit drought regions. Take a look. Throngs of locals brandishing cardboard cutouts of the royals gathered in the town, while others wore royal fancy dress, and local bar even specially brewed coffees dubbed Dubbo Royale. The prince and his US-born wife were met on Dubbo's airport tarmac by gleeful school children waving Australian flags before unveiling a new aircraft for the country's Royal Flying Doctor Service at the local airport. But the pair also stopped for a cuddle with 5-year-old Luke Vincent, who was wearing his Benignium public school uniform and a blue and white cap, as he nuzzled the Duchess and affectionately rubbed the Duke's thinning ginger head and stroked his beard. The royal couple are in Dubbo, a town 6 hours drive from Sydney, to enjoy a family picnic tour to a school that works with young Indigenous Australians and to meet with drought-stricken farmers.
Shifting gears now, here's a video graphic illustrating the European Space Agency's first mission to examine the mysteries of Mercury, which blasts off on Saturday. An Ariane 5 rocket launched from Kourou in French Guiana carries probes designed to unlock the secrets of Mercury, the smallest of the planets in the solar system and the nearest to the Sun. Mercury remains a mystery. A joint project between the European Space Agency and the Japanese agency JAXA, the Bepicolombo spacecraft is on a 7-year journey covering nearly 9 billion kilometers. As it approaches the planet, Bepicolombo will reduce its speed to resist the enormous gravitational pull of the Sun and to be pulled in by Mercury's weaker gravitational field. A spacecraft is composed of 2 probes that will be ejected from a transfer module and placed into 2 separate orbits. From 2025 and over a period, or from 2025 and over a period of at least a year, the probes known as the MPO and the MMO will study the internal structure of Mercury, its magnetic field, and its interaction with the Sun and the solar wind. They will examine the chemical composition of the planet's surface, such as the ice lying in the polar craters perpetually in shadow. Mercury has solar radiation 10 times superior to that of Earth, and the temperature reaches 430 degrees Celsius, so the spacecraft is made from a special material that protects its instruments. The aim of the mission is to learn more about the formation of the solar system and how planets nearer the Sun have evolved.
In other news, the ambassador of Israel, His Excellency Rafael Harpaz, visited the Iglesia Ni Cristo Central Office on Wednesday morning for a courtesy call to Executive Minister Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. He also had a quick tour of the INC Museum as well as of the INC Central Temple in Quezon City. During the courtesy call, Ambassador Harpaz noted how the Iglesia Ni Cristo, which marked its 104th year anniversary last July 27, as well as its 50th year in the West, had expanded rapidly across the globe. The ambassador, who was assigned in August in the Philippines after the stint of the former Israeli ambassador Efi Ben Matityahu, expressed curiosity and interest in the INC's history, teachings, and beliefs after noting the presence of the church's houses of worship throughout the country. Now, during the courtesy call, Ambassador Harpaz noted how the INC which marked its 104th year anniversary last July 27, as well as its 50th year in the West, had expanded rapidly across the globe. The ambassador, who was assigned in August in the Philippines after the stint of the former Israeli ambassador Efi Ben Matityahu, expressed curiosity and interest in the INC's history, teachings, and beliefs after noting the presence of the church's houses of worship throughout the country. Take a look.
It was a wonderful visit today of the Ambassador of Israel to the Philippines, His Excellency Ambassador Rafael Harpaz, to the Executive Minister of the Iglesia ni Cristo, Brother Eduardo Manalo. They had a very friendly conversation, and during that conversation, one of the things that Ambassador Harpaz mentioned in his approximately 2 months of being here in the Philippines, wherever he's gone around the country, every part of the Philippines that he's seen, he's noticed the big, beautiful houses of worship of the Iglesia ni Cristo. And it was not only that, but the kind words as well of the previous ambassador, Efi Ben Matityahu, that all the more motivated Ambassador Harpaz to visit the central office. And during that conversation, as he was speaking with the executive minister, Ambassador Harpaz had many questions about the beginning of the church, its history, its beliefs. And when Ambassador Harpaz learned from the executive minister that we have a museum, all the more he was interested in visiting our museum, which is actually why we are here right now. And he also emphasized how much he admires museums, including our own, because it's in the museum you can see the history, the values of a nation that get passed on from generation to generation. And as our brother Eduardo Manalo, as Executive Minister Church, has been doing, emphasizing the importance of that Iglesia ni Cristo families, parents, continue to pass on the Bible-based Christian values of the Iglesia ni Cristo from generation to generation. And one of the things also when it comes to Ambassador Harpaz noting the rapid expansion of the church in different places, including areas where he had also been assigned in his previous diplomatic assignments. Once again, all these are in line with the anniversary of the Church of Christ in its foreign missions. We have the golden anniversary, the 50th year of the Church of Christ expansion, we have the 50th year of the Church of Christ expansion, which began the mission beginning in July 27, 1968, and now we have in 2018 the very rapid growth in different parts of the world as the executive minister leads the entire church in celebrating the fulfillment of God's promises to the Church of Christ.
We'll be back with more news right after this break.
Stay tuned.
Health is our most important.
For Business News, this is Cesar Vallejos. Both the Philippine bourse and the peso ended with gains for the second consecutive day Wednesday, mirroring the bullish sentiment at Wall Street. The Philippine Stock Exchange Index rose by 1.61% or 112.66 points to 7,099.68 points. Landmark market economist Gian Lagan in a report also attributed the positive close of local markets to U.S. President Donald Trump's calm reaction to yesterday's reported death of a Washington Post reporter. Report said Trump had a talk with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman after the latter's meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in Riyadh. The president later tweeted that the Crown Prince totally denied any knowledge of what took place in their Turkish consulate. Trump's reaction was apparently seen by the market as a sign that a direct political confrontation between the world's biggest economy and the oil-rich kingdom has been staved off. With these factors, risk on sentiment in the local market were up, resulting to general positive sentiment. Thus, all shares increased by 1.23% or 52.57 points to 4,342.28 points. Globe Telecom was recognized as Asia's Best Workplace of the Year at the Asia Corporate Excellence Sustainability Awards. This is a testament to its efforts in creating the most wonderful experience possible for each of its about 8,000 employees nationwide. ACES showcases successful individuals and companies in Asia in terms of leadership and sustainability. This year, Globe Telecom was selected as Asia's Best Workplace of the Year, recognizing its initiative to provide its employees the best working environment possible and various opportunities for holistic development. ACES annually presents the Asia's Best Workplace of the Year to one company that best represents a people-centric approach and a strong commitment towards employee empowerment and enrichment. The awarded company has a healthy attrition rate, engages and nurtures a great pool of talents, as well as practices knowledge sharing among employees and stakeholders. Globe also allows employees to strike a balance between work and life in its headquarters in Taguig City through the various in-house facilities, a gym, bank, salon, pharmacy, and car wash, among others. On top of their leave credits, Globe decided to give each employee 2 days of volunteer time off per year devoted to corporate social responsibility work. In 2007, volunteerism in Globe reached an all-time high of 52.8% of total employee base, with over 3,000 employees contributing over 60,000 man-hours. Philippine economic managers recently wooed investors at the sidelines of an International Monetary Fund World Bank event in Indonesia in an effort to bring more foreign direct investments into the country. The country's Investor Relations Office said two of the country's top economic officials, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Deputy Governor Diwa Ginigundo and Budget Secretary Benjamin Diokno, strengthened ties with international investors in a series of roundtable meetings on the sidelines of the 2018 IMF World Bank annual meetings in Bali, Nusa Dua, Indonesia. The IRO said closed-door presentations were held during the week to convince potential investors that the Philippines remains to be one of the best-performing economies in the region. Salient points discussed included the Philippines' sound economic management and its advantageous young population in an increasingly aging world, the IRO said. The briefing sessions provided an opportunity to update international investors on the progress of the Philippines' 180 billion Build initiative. The once-in-a-lifetime nation-building program has gained considerable momentum over the last year, with 44 of the 75 largest projects already at the implementation phase, while 24 are at the development stage, the IRO said in a statement. The economic managers also assured that monetary and non-monetary measures being taken to temper inflation. Ginigundo also reiterated that the BSP will continue to sustain its vigilance with a strong tightening bias while maintaining a data-dependent approach. Foreign investors were seen to be eager to put their money in the Philippine economy in hopes for long-term economic gains at the start of 2018's second half, latest data from the BSP showed. The United States has the world's most competitive and innovative economy, a World Economic Forum ranking shows, after a methodology shift helped unseat Switzerland after nearly a decade on top. This year's report studied how 140 economies fared when measured against 98 indicators organized into 12 pillars, including institutions, infrastructure, macroeconomic stability, business dynamism, and innovation capability.
The U.S. scores at 85.6, which essentially means it's still about 14 points away from that frontier of competitiveness. Why they do well? They're an innovation powerhouse. They do well in terms of labor markets. They do well in terms of market size. They do fairly well in terms of institutions, but there are also a lot of worrying signs. So the U.S. is one of the lowest ranked G20 economies when it comes to health. There are concerns about freedom of the press. There are concerns about judicial independence. And so there are a number of these softer factors that could have an implication for the country's competitiveness in the longer term.
Zahidi, meanwhile, said there are also a lot of worrying signs for U.S. competitiveness. She pointed to the country's low score in terms of participation by women in the labor force, where it ranked 37th as well as 40th place in terms of press freedom. WEF also stressed the importance of openness for competitiveness, including low tariff and non-tariff barriers to trade and ease of hiring foreign labor. Overall, the United States scored an average of 85.6 points when the nearly 100 indicators were measured on a scale of 0 to 100 and was followed by Singapore and Germany. Switzerland, meanwhile, landed in 4th place with a score of 82.6 after 9 years at the top of the WEF ranking. That's it for business news. This is Cesar Vallejos. Eagle News International will be back. Stay with us.
Is our most important asset, and it should always be a constant effort to seek ways to take care of it. That includes professional medical help from the best available. The Manila-Beijing Medical Associated Incorporated is known as one of the most specialized centers in medical services, backed by several experienced physicians in Chinese medicine. At an accuracy rate of 98%, countless patients who visited Manila
MTRCV ang mag-provide na appropriate ratings sa lahat ng TV shows. Para ugaliin ng pamilya ang responsableng panonood. Teamwork tayo, parents!
Rated G, good for all. Oops, rated PG.
Dapat may mga magulang para sagutin ang mga tanong ng kabataan.
Grabe, rated SPG, maselan!
Higpitan ang paggabay.
Pag rated MTRCV, rated responsable.
Health is our most important.
Despite an exceptionally snow-filled winter, Swiss glaciers have lost 2.5% of their volume this year, a report which dubs 2018 a year of extreme says. If the planet continues warming at the same pace as today, scientists warned that many of Switzerland's smaller glaciers will completely disappear. Take a look.
Une grande partie des glaciers sont actuellement déneigés. Alors l'impact, c'est que la neige protège le glacier de la fonte. Tant qu'on a de la neige sur le glacier ne fond pas. C'est la neige qui fond. À partir du moment où le glacier est en grande partie déneigé, c'est la glace qui fond.
Meanwhile, here's a video graphic illustrating NASA's ICESat-2 mission underway to measure changes in ice elevation on Earth. Swiss glaciers have already lost 2.5% of their volume this year, according to a new report.
Launched from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, NASA's ICESat-2 mission is part of continuing studies on climate change. The aim is to monitor how the cryosphere is evolving, precisely measuring change in the height of ice sheets, glaciers and sea ice. ICESat-2 will also measure the height of the world's forests to estimate biomass on a large scale, the Earth's topography, as well as cloud elevation. The satellite is equipped with a laser altimeter. It'll send tiny pulses of laser light to the ground at a rate of 10,000 per second. By measuring precisely the time it takes for light to reach Earth and travel back to the satellite, the elevation of surfaces can be calculated. The laser measures height every 70 centimeters along the satellite's ground path. The mission is expected to last 3 years.
Prince Harry and his expectant wife Meghan visited the drought-stricken region of Australia, bringing a rare and welcome rainstorm with them. Take a look.
I know that life has not been easy. You have just lived through 2 years of drought. And despite recent welcome rain, it is going to take a lot more and a long time to recover. It must be hard not to lose hope when you endure so many dry months end on end. People in many farming communities generally don't seek the support they need for multiple reasons. Because they are often more isolated, their social networks are smaller, and there is still a stigma surrounding mental health.
Eastern Australia has been suffering through record-breaking dry periods, with some regions in and around Dubbo experiencing several years of drought. Only in the past few weeks have some areas begun to see rain, although the downpours remain patchy. Harry, who has spoken about his own mental health issues following the death of his mother, also called on those affected by drought to ask for help.
We know that suicide rates in rural and remote areas are greater than in urban populations, and this may be especially true among young men in remote regions. But you need to know that part of being strong and tough is having the courage to ask for help when you need it. You must not silently suffer. You are all in this together. And, if I may speak personally, we are all in this together, because asking for help was one of the best decisions that I ever made.
The Royals began a 16-day Pacific tour on Monday, landing in Sydney and almost immediately announcing the Duchess' pregnancy. They will visit Melbourne on Thursday before returning to Sydney. On Friday, the Prince will scale the Sydney Harbour Bridge and hoist the flag to open the Invictus Games, a sports championship for wounded military personnel.
In respect of those people, and in a little less than a month we'll all gather here again. There is no problem.
Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards at Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles and
we're one with 25.